Story 1. I had a woodworking accident just over 2 years ago. It was not huge, but I lost my left index finger and it hit me hard. It makes you realize you are not invincible. Story 2. I was 23 in October 2011. I was fired from my store manager position at GameStop on May 2, 2011. My son was born on May 15, 2011, to a woman I had gotten pregnant by 3 months into our relationship. The friends I rented a house with didn't want to live with a kid, so they all agreed to end the lease. I had to move back home with my dad, my girlfriend, and our new baby. With no degree and severely overestimating how impressive being a retail general manager is, I took a swing shift job at a bindery inserting covers into magazines. I had completely shut down emotionally and was just going through the motions. One night around 2 a.m., I became really angry at myself and overwhelmed with despair on my son's behalf. I looked at him sleeping in his ratty pack and play and thought of his Christmases, his birthdays, his field trips, a collection of future memories in which I would disappoint him and he'd never have the life he deserved because of his piece of shit father who couldn't do anything right. It wasn't fair to him. Something clicked and I was determined to do something. A few customers recommended I apply to a local insurance company with a call center in the area. I applied for several open positions, put my all into my resume and cover letter, and went to bed feeling like this would be a turning point. I got a job in sales, rented a shitty apartment, then a nicer one, got a job in claims, and bought a house. 10 years later, I'm still with the woman I got pregnant 3 months into dating, and I honestly cannot fucking believe how lucky I am. My daughter was born in 2012. My kids are spoiled, and while we aren't wealthy, we're not living in my dad's house anymore. I'd say we're solidly lower middle class. My son completely changed our lives that night. Whenever I get discouraged, I look at him and remember that even a fuck-up like me can get things done when the chips are down, and we've managed to survive every potentially derailing disaster since. Story 3. I know my story is not as intense as some others, but here it goes. I have played guitar for the past 5 years, and it has become one of my biggest passions. 6 weeks ago, I lost my footing while climbing a platform, and I am fairly certain I have permanent tendon damage in my left hand. It did not sink in what had happened until I was in my car after the doctor's appointment. I will now spend the rest of my life with this injured left hand instead of with it healthy. My passions feel gone. I have little activity because I am afraid of re-injuring myself, and I feel more useless than before. I miss being ignorant of this. I always forget how supportive people on this site can be. Thank you, everyone. Many people recommend learning to play left-handed. Enough that I will give it a try. I have the knowledge. I just need my hands to catch up. Thank you all again. Story 4. A dear friend was diagnosed with cancer out of the blue. We were 29, both just hitting our stride in life and work. She died 18 months later. It rocked me to my core how fragile life is. Story 5. I held the hand of a dying woman who had been in a collision between a double tractor trailer and a Ford Focus. The back of her head was missing. She was my age and had twin daughters. I held her as she took her last breath, begging her to open her eyes. In that moment, I realized that surviving an ectopic pregnancy in 2011, during which I died twice, and a septic gallbladder in 2013 had prepared me to be there for this woman. That is when my life began. Story 6. When I lost my wife and daughter, I did not remember the first few months. I remember when I started to heal. It was a long road, but once I set my sights on going back to school to become a lawyer, I began to heal. This Friday, I will be sworn in as an attorney. Story 7. Last week, a coworker had a massive heart attack and died in the cafeteria. I did not know him, so while it was horrible to witness, I will eventually get over it. What shook me more was that he was in his early 20s, only slightly younger than me, and not much more overweight than I am. Seeing firsthand how suddenly all my bad decisions could erase me from existence, and remembering that I have had a couple of small chest pains that I ignored in the past, I threw out everything sugary as soon as I got home. Update. Thank you to those who recommended seeing a doctor. I had already scheduled a general checkup to be safe. Story 8. I realized I was acting like the crazy ex and immediately changed my behavior. Story 9. On January 13, 2018, I was in Honolulu, Hawaii, during the false ballistic missile alert. I called my parents to say goodbye and waited for the impact in the basement of our hotel with my fiancée. It took far too long for authorities to correct the mistake and notify people that it was a false alarm. We were visibly shaken all day. Upon returning, I decided to request 3 months off work for our honeymoon instead of 2 weeks. We traveled the world, and I was reminded how important family is compared with work. I still have to remind myself of that every so often, because the grind gets to you. Story 10. After having a stroke, I became determined to do more. I am more aware that you only live once. Story 11. When I graduated high school, I realized I had no skills, no hobbies, and nothing interesting about myself. So it was no wonder I struggled with dating. I spent the last few years changing that. Story 12. I was at a really low point in my life. I did not think things could get worse. So many things were going wrong and so many bad choices were being made. I was at a point where ending it all was the only option I could see. When I cut my wrist, everything became clear. Things could get worse and they might, but I did not want to die. 56 internal stitches, 15 external, and I am still here. Things did get worse, but then they became amazing. Although I am nowhere near as dark as I was at that point in my life, I have been going 10 rounds in the ring with life over the last few months. All the messages and support you have sent have really lifted me. Thank you. Story 13. 2 years ago last month, I used methamphetamine for the last time. Thank you to everyone for the kind words and encouragement. I will reply to everyone individually later. I have a medical marijuana card, so I do not consider myself sober. I am still in recovery, specifically from amphetamines and alcohol. Marijuana and Zoloft are the only drugs I will ever put in my body again. If you or someone you know is in the situation I was in 2 years ago, please direct message me if you want to talk. I am in the process of becoming a substance abuse specialist. This work is my passion. Story 14. So, 1 week after being told I had prostate cancer at 47, I decided I needed to get fitter and healthier. Honestly, my heart wasn't in it and I was on the verge of depression. It's 5:40 a.m., and I was idly drinking tea before going to the gym, 50-50 about going back to bed, and almost ready to give up on life. Scrolling through Facebook, I saw the quote, "A man has 2 lives. One before he realizes he is mortal and one after." I stared at it like it was a revelation. Something I can't describe lifted in me. I drained my tea and went to the gym. Almost exactly 1 year later, I am officially fit. I have lost 15 kilograms with another 13 kilograms to go. 6 mornings a week, I row 10,000 meters on a Concept 2 rowing machine, and I lift weights at the gym once a week. My last scan showed the cancer hasn't changed in a year, and it will now be monitored for 2 years to see if it is stable. If I do need to have it removed, I am in the best shape for a successful operation. It's no exaggeration to say this quote changed my life. Update: wow. I never expected this response. Thank you so much. I have tried to reply to everyone who asked a question. Thank you for the gold and silver and for the support. It means a great deal to an old man like me. Also, I will never type dong instead of doing ever again. Story 15. I suppose it began when I turned 20. Before that, I had never thought past that age. I spent a long time stuck in a now what phase, trying not to have an existential crisis. Eventually, I went to college, earned a degree, and now I work in the field I studied. I battled depression and won, and I found some of what I was looking for in life. I am starting to figure out what I want and what it will take to get there. So I guess I started my second life when I got out of my age 20 funk. Story 16. I got psychological help. I used to think life just sucked for everyone and that the trick was to fake your way through it. I thought other people's happiness was just pretending. From puberty into my 40s, every moment of happiness was weighed down by persistent depression and low self-esteem. I know this is small compared to what most people go through in life, and that mentality kept me from getting help. It took a while, but after talking with a counselor once a week for a few months, being referred to a psychiatrist for an initial diagnosis, and working with my psychiatrist to find medications that work, I finally feel what I assume is normal. I wake up most days with an underlying happiness that has never been there before. Moments with my kids are not darkened by thoughts that I don't deserve them or that they wouldn't love me if they knew me. Don't be like me. Even if your mountain seems small compared with the mountain others are climbing, that doesn't mean you couldn't use help finding the right path. To quote an old man from my childhood, "It's dangerous out there." I truly hope whatever type of help leads to a better life for you and that you all have a chance to receive it. Life can get better. Baby steps. I'm sailing. Story 17. When I quit my job 5 years ago and biked across the country, I realized as soon as I finished that I would forever look at life differently. I had been working an absolutely horrendous job. High stress, low pay, terrible hours, all because I needed the experience for my career. At some point, I realized I did not have to be that miserable. I rage quit, bought a bicycle, and cycled across the continental United States for 2 months. I found my center and my confidence and started treating myself better. I met some of the most interesting, wild, and honorable people along the way. Best decision I ever made, and I still treat myself with the respect I feel I deserve. Edit. A few more details for those interested. I did not keep the full blog, but I documented my preparation and the first few weeks on the road. I cannot remember if my blog covered the financial side, but over the course of just under a year I had saved about $5,000 to pull off the trip. I had no significant other or pets at the time. I rented a room in my father's house while in that job, so my cost of living was reasonable. I was a crisis counselor, so while the pay was poor, it did not match the work I was doing. Above all, I was resourceful. I went to cities where I knew people and told my story to many others. Strangers along the way gave me gift cards, $10 bills, or other help. Ever flirt with a motel desk clerk for a free room? It takes creativity to travel at low cost, but it was worth every challenge. Story 18. A few months ago, my mother fell down the stairs at 2 a.m. We were home alone, and she wasn't responding. I called the emergency number, 112, and an ambulance came. She's fine now, but the thought of losing her shook me so much that I decided to turn my life around. I only have one life and need to do as much as possible with it. I came out as bisexual, started eating healthier, and focused much more on school. Life has been going much better since then. Story 19. When one of my best friends and his sister were murdered by his father when he was 16, it made me realize how precious life is and that I should always be grateful for what I have. The tragedy destroyed his life. He will never be the same. Story 20. I had a conversation with my dad about winning the lottery. He asked me if I would go to film school if money wasn't an issue. Of course, I answered affirmatively. He told me to go for it, so I did. Here I am in my first semester as a film student, living the life I want. Life is good right now. I am not making compromises. Story 21. On September 18th, my brother-in-law was walking to work when he was hit by a car while crossing the road. We agonized over what was happening while he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, not sure if he would wake up. As a family, we finally decided that, given the brain damage, he would not have a quality life and would likely be in a vegetative state, so we withdrew. Life support. He was an organ donor, so there is some consolation that he may have saved the lives of others. It was only last week that we watched him pass. I had no idea the body becomes so waxy. He was only 25, the baby brother, our third musketeer. It hurts so much. I think this is my defining moment, but I do not know how to use this to live a more fulfilling life. Story 22. When I was 25, mushrooms killed me. They were only joking, of course, but it seemed very real to me, and nothing has ever been the same, really. Story 23. I had buried most of my family, all my grandparents, my father, and my brother by age 24. I am not sure I remember my first life. Story 24. I got a scary diagnosis. I feared I would never be anything more than I was at that moment. A victim who never really lived. I cut my abusive, narcissistic family out of my life, left an unhappy marriage, lost a significant amount of weight, and started working toward the career I wanted. I am not perfect, but my life is good now and my body is mostly cooperating. I honestly cannot believe who I used to be. Story 25. Meeting the woman who would become my wife changed my life. I had been in numerous troubled relationships, mostly because I was childish, lazy, and selfish, and I was unemployed with only a general educational development certificate. I was taking classes at the local community college but had no specific goal. I was used to ex-girlfriends telling me to get a job and grow up. But this woman was different. She pushed me in a loving way and challenged me to be my best. We married right after I received my master's degree. I would not have achieved any of this without her, and I am deeply grateful for a second chance. People ask what she did. We have been together for 7 years, almost 8. It is a lot of give and take, but we fit together. For example, I love cooking and she loves cleaning. Much of how she pushed me was through encouragement. Instead of saying, "I do not know if you will be able to do something," or "that is stupid, I do not think you should do that," she would say, "Do it. I will support you no matter the outcome." She celebrated when I succeeded and comforted me when I failed. We have always supported each other's happiness while staying realistic. When I was stressed about graduate school, she told me to take a day for myself and relax or go fishing. I hope this helps. I do not know how else to explain it. Story 26. In less than 3 months, I got divorced, I was fired, and I lost a grandparent and a parent. I have 2 small children. I am entering the 4th month and have submitted over 200 applications. I have had only small responses and no job offers from reputable employers. Someone set up a fake interview in an attempt at sex trafficking. So please be careful, everyone. My second life is starting amid everything now and in the near future. I just have to find the missing pieces. Story 27. At 9, I got my first migraine. I slowly realized my life was going to hurt going forward no matter what. So enjoy the moments you are physically able to. My condolences to everyone suffering from migraines and daily headaches. Smile while you can. Tomorrow might be worse. Story 28. 4 years ago, I started live-action role-playing and stopped caring. Story 29. This happened during my sophomore year of high school. A student 2 grades above me committed suicide at 4 a.m. on Monday. I came into school hearing people whispering and thought it was just high school drama and rumors. During first period, the teacher walked in and told the class that a student had passed away. I thought it was a joke. I knew his name and his sister. I had played soccer with her for years. As the day went on, it became clear that he was gone. The whole school's atmosphere changed. People who did not even know him were crying in the halls. Kids I had known since kindergarten were missing from school, mourning his passing. I came home and sobbed in my room. It still does not seem real. I attended his funeral. Teachers from elementary through high school were there. Kids I had not seen in 5 years came to support his family and friends. His cousins spoke and cried as they shared stories about him. I did not know him well. I only knew his sister. We had attended the same church when we were younger, but it still hurt that someone I had known since I was little was gone. After that, I realized I had to keep living. Depression had controlled my life for years, and I had been close to taking my life several times. This showed me how many people would be devastated and how many I had to stay for. It is still hard sometimes, but I do not want to leave this world anymore. I still think about him sometimes, and I hope he is in a better place. Story 30. 2 months ago, one of my best friends almost died during our trip to Tokyo. He is 24, and during the trip he discovered he had type 1 diabetes the hard way. He probably had it his entire life but did not know it. He collapsed in our apartment. I remember getting a call from the friend who went with him in the ambulance. "Guys, you need to come to this hospital as soon as possible. He is dying right now." Luckily, he survived, and he is currently in a hospital in the Netherlands waiting for a kidney transplant. That trip taught me how precious life is and how it can end so suddenly. For the last 2 months, I have appreciated every moment much more. I guess being closer to death really makes you feel more alive. Story 31. It has not happened yet. I am still young, with the foolish mentality that I am immortal. Story 32. My second life began the day I had my first heart attack. I have had 4 heart attacks, and life is precious. I do not need anybody's nonsense anymore. I am taking this second chance to make sure my children understand how to make the right choices and respect life for what it is. Story 33. When I woke up in a hospital, I realized how close I had come to death. I had what seemed to be a minor bicycle accident, but I ended up in a coma in an unfortunate location behind a slight curve on a rural road where fully loaded semi-trucks often sped at 100 kilometers per hour, about 60 miles per hour. I was invisible to them until the last moment, but a driver found me before the first truck arrived and drove me to the hospital. I woke up about 3 hours later. I know what happened because the driver told the doctor and the doctor told me. I have no idea who originally found me. The minor nature of the accident is what made me realize how close death can be on an ordinary day. Story 34. When I was 6, I learned I had been born with a brain tumor. Its removal was a major eye-opener and helped me realize I have only one life. Story 35. When I turned 21, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was officially considered an adult by almost everyone and life was moving so fast. It made me realize I did not want to look back and regret anything. Now I work harder, laugh more, eat healthier, exercise daily, and always remember to enjoy the moment. Story 36. I keep realizing this, but by the end of the day I forget. I am alternating between these two lives. Story 37. In August 2019, I was depressed for a long while and still am, and instead of seeking help, I decided to wallow in self-pity. My wake-up call came when I found that I had failed an entire semester, and I realized that if I continued my free fall, I would end up in the place I feared. I am seeking help for my mental health, took a semester off, and am currently working in a lab. Most days are difficult, but I am genuinely smiling more these days. Story 38. Heartbreak taught me that nothing good happens simply because you want it to. No matter how hard you try, you can still fail because factors outside your control can affect your life, and you have to accept that. It also taught me that I have limited time on Earth and that there is a real possibility I might live without finding true love. True love is not just going to happen. Story 39. After taking psilocybin mushrooms for the first time, I experienced a profound change. Not as a joke. Anyone who has taken them responsibly will tell you they can completely change how you see the world. I became a kinder person and much more open to trying new things. Please do your own research before trying them. Story 40. I feel my second life will begin in a few years. I hope things will change once I finish studying and start working. Story 41. A failed suicide attempt was followed by the death of the only person I thought I could trust and who respected me. Their death was painful and unavoidable. My second life started when I stopped caring about what the world thinks. I came out to my family, went back to school, and got some good gigs in my industry. Life still has its downsides, but pushing through feels rewarding. The username gives it away, but that is not my sole reason for living. It is just a big part. You have to chase your dreams and work hard toward what you really believe in. Story 42. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I feel like this realization should have kicked in by now because, although I feel somewhat healthy, I'm living a life I shouldn't be able to survive for long. I eat poorly, I drink way too much alcohol at least 3 times a week. I've smoked for over a decade and I do no exercise. This hasn't been a recent thing, it's been the last 10 years. I know I'm killing myself in the long run, but I don't see the symptoms yet and I lack motivation to change for myself. Sometimes I think I should get a pet to feel responsible for something, to guilt myself into caring for my own well-being. As selfish and twisted as that thought is, it keeps coming back. Story 43. In January 2018, I went in to quit my job and was fired because I was too sick to work. I originally took the office job because my body could not handle working in a retail store. I was constantly spraining my wrists and elbows, and my hips and feet hurt a lot. A chiropractor told me my leg bones were sliding up into my hips from standing so much and probably from lifting heavy things as well. 3 months after leaving my job at the age of 20, I was diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Suddenly I had an explanation for all of the pain I was in, all of the intestinal problems I had, and how oddly my bones, joints, and tendons move. Skin does not always hurt to the touch. In the last year and a half, my condition has worsened significantly. At first, I was extremely depressed and spent a lot of time in bed trying to feel better. I learned about my body and the alarming things it can and should not do. I saw a counselor who was unhelpful. and I underwent extensive physical therapy that resulted in a permanent neck injury for which I am still seeking treatment. The daily pain I experience is unimaginable and difficult to comprehend. I am now taking several pain medications and seeing a physical rehabilitation doctor. I enjoy mindfulness meditation when I need to relax. It was the main thing that helped me emerge from depression. Some family members have had a hard time understanding my situation, and some still do. It does not matter. I do what I can each day, and I am still learning how much is too much. The hardest part is that I am 23 years old, female, and, aside from dark circles and bruises, I look completely normal. I have good muscle mass and tone because my muscles hold me together. I cannot count how many times doctors, even school nurses, did not provide the care I needed because I appeared fine. At this point, I probably have post-traumatic stress disorder from all of it. I developed a massive ulcer after a severe flu when I was 8. I can still remember how unkind my school nurse, Ms. Swan, was during the month I missed school and was sick before my mother took me to the hospital. I was misdiagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis from age 15 to 17, and the medications and self-injections made me sick. I was told I only had bad gas when I actually had an orange-sized cyst on my ovary. There is more, but I prefer not to think about it. Online support, especially on Instagram, has been amazing. Medical researchers are working daily to find the gene that causes this. People with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome give advice to others. Even yoga and Pilates instructors with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome post videos online. Sleepasantosha is my favorite. People have developed lists of supplements and medications that work for them. Communities try to spread awareness and hope. I suspect this is the only life I will have, and if it must be this hard, I have to become stronger, even if only mentally. Anyone going through something difficult, no matter what it is, please feel free to comment or vent about it. Story 44. I lived with my ex-boyfriend who had schizophrenia for a long time. I was not working, could not drive, and he would not teach me. I also lived too far away to regularly learn from my parents, so getting and keeping a job was really hard. I think I could have done things differently to be more independent, but I did not question it much at the time. Towards the end of the relationship, I was essentially prevented from leaving the house because he believed the government was coming for us. It became very frightening. I was extremely isolated with minimal support because we lived far away, and I did not want people to know what was happening. I left him, moved several states away, and went from being a college dropout with no job, living in a constant state of fear, to getting into tech support. I have a great job, a husband, and a wonderful group of friends. I think I did many things in that relationship that made my situation worse. I do not think he was a bad person, but mental illness is very difficult, and because I had limited power in that relationship, I was at its mercy for a while. I feel like a different person, and that was someone else's life. Feels very strange. Story 45. 2 months ago, my cousin fell asleep while driving and crashed into a tree. He had been awake all morning because his grandfather had died the previous night and they had to arrange the burial. He was 27 years old and a civil engineer with a master's degree in bridge engineering. He was to be married in February, and he died 2 days before his first niece was born. He was a wonderful person. His death did not change that. Seeing my aunt bury her father and then her firstborn on the same day was devastating. It changed my perspective on life and reminded me how an entire future can be lost in a second. Story 46. I thought I was an invincible beast until my twin died suddenly. It puts life into perspective at such a young age. Story 47. I think it started happening to me very recently. I am slowly realizing this might be it for me. I enjoy what I can, love the people I love, and cherish every minute. I still struggle with some things, but overall I am content with my life and grateful for the people in it. They are amazing, and I am trying to leave something behind that gives them a sense of who I am. I love my family, and the idea that this might end one day scares me. Even seeing my parents age is hard to stomach, but that is a part of life. Story 48. I accidentally shot my brother, paralyzing him. It was a turning point that changed everything I thought I knew about myself. Since then, it has felt like a second life. Story 49. Today I am done being unhealthy. For years, I ate poorly and lived an unhealthy lifestyle. No more. Story 50. I was a reckless teenager and a careless 20-something, and I drove like it. On a long road trip to Phoenix in midwinter in the mountains, I was hit by a blizzard. Because I lacked caution, I kept driving at the speed limit. I took a curve too fast and almost slid off the side of the mountain. I do not drive like that anymore. Story 51. Some homophobic people falsely accused me of felonies and had me jailed. I planned to take my own life but could not go through with it because of the guards and other people. After my release, I decided to finally come out and give life a try. Story 52. When I was 21, I became very sick and was eventually misdiagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome. My doctor told me, kindly but bluntly, that I had less than 5 years to live. With a new husband and baby, that was the last thing we wanted to hear. After more than a year of tests, treatments, blood work, and hospital bills, they correctly diagnosed me with parvovirus in my bone marrow and treated it appropriately. Within another 6 months, I had made a full recovery. Story 53. It hasn't happened yet, but I am very close. I can see the finish line of my first life, getting closer with every step and making me more anxious to cross it. Although I want to leave the bad things behind, it terrifies me because at least they are familiar. Baby steps. Making the good things familiar so I can leave the bad ones behind and not miss them. Suffering has become such an integral part of my everyday routine that without it I feel lost. But I am changing slowly. Tranquility is an ever-growing part of my daily life. Washing my face. The few seconds with a hot cloth over my face are among the most tranquil moments of my life. My morning katas and Tai Chi routine. Listening to the playlist Snatch Clang, meaning the sound that lingers after a loud noise, and the calm before the storm. Taking care of my plants, wiping their leaves and humming, cleaning the apartment, waiting for my partner to come home, reading, knitting, going to work and helping people. One day I will cross that line and step into my second life with my own strength, the support of the people around me, and my medications. I am getting a rescue dog in November. She is a rescue, like me. I am looking forward to it, hoping and doing my best so the first step I take with her by my side will be the first step into my second life. Story 54. New life started after my last divorce. My ex was abusive, gaslighting, attempted murder, and rape. A truly awful person. When he said he wanted a divorce, I wanted to cry happy tears right then. Since then, I've done more in the last decade than I did in the previous 3. Life is awesome. No matter how down I get, I tell myself it could be worse because I lived through worse. Then I am no longer deeply sad, just upset with current circumstances and aware they are temporary. On a slight tangent, it also makes me realize I can walk away and still be okay. But really, I'm happy right where I am. Story 55. On December 2nd, 2006, in Iraq, our vehicle hit a large roadside bomb. It changed my life forever. Story 56. I smoked dimethyltryptamine in a dog park with a Mayan shaman. That was a pretty clear line in the sand. Story 57. In spring 2018, I began cognitive behavioral therapy by listening to Dr. David Burns's books Feeling Good, The New Mood Therapy, and When Panic Attacks on Audible. I learned a great deal about myself. I had been living in a limited cage shaped by my own choices, my parents, and those around me, living in fear and not being true to myself. I continue to learn new things about myself every day. The key is to listen to the recordings repeatedly, complete the written exercises, and persist with cognitive behavioral therapy. Story 58. When I had just turned 15, my mom and I were talking on my bed about all the things we could now do since we had escaped. Putting the Christmas tree up in November was high on that list. Story 59. I'm really sorry you're feeling so overwhelmed. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services, 911 in the US, or your local emergency number. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the United Kingdom, Samaritans, 116 123. In Australia, Lifeline 13 11 14. If you are elsewhere, Contact local emergency services or tell me your country and I can help find a crisis line. I can help rephrase the sentence for Azure text-to-speech to remove self-harm content. Example: if I thought I had to live a whole other life, I don't know how I would get through it. Do you want a different wording or more help? Story 60. I always knew consciousness could end at any time, but this year I learned that 7 people from my high school class of 200 are dead. That is 3.5% of us, and that number will probably grow a little every year until it reaches its maximum. Story 61. When I was 21, I had open-heart surgery. I almost died in the operating room that day. I stopped caring what other people thought and began having fun. To hell with other people's feelings, needs, and wants. I put myself first, along with my loved ones. Story 62. I used to think there would be a single moment in my life that would change me dramatically for the better, a second life, so to speak. Now I think our lives are more like a yo-yo. Major events can cause dramatic shifts and reveal possibilities, but over time things slip and the cycle repeats. Ultimately, it is up to us to recognize those moments and take action when they occur. I would like to believe that life will kick us into gear and everything will be all right, but it actually requires individual effort to engage when those moments occur. If we simply let a yo-yo go, it will fall to the bottom. Story 63. In February of this year, I witnessed someone being stabbed to death with a screwdriver in the parking lot of my workplace. I do not come from a violent area, and violence has never been a real part of my life. I play a lot of violent video games, and to all the people who say it desensitizes you, it does not. Story 64. A little over a year ago, one of my clients lost their 7-year-old daughter to an inoperable brain tumor. I saw her every week and loved her. She was the sweetest, most endearing child I have ever met. I have 2 children of my own. The grief, heartache, and confusion I experienced changed me, changed my worldview, and I hated what I went through. Worse, I hated that the child, her parents, and her siblings had to endure so much. I went through a period of depression. Soon after I began to face life again, one of my husband's closest friends died suddenly and unexpectedly. After all that, I decided that if something makes me happy, I should do it. It is not a perfect life motto, but I believe you should seek happiness now if you can, because life is short. We are all going through it together, and the only thing we are promised is that we will die. That may sound depressing, but what I mean is enjoy the life you have while you have it. Story 65. Mine started after my suicide attempt, which nobody knew about. I almost died. I patched my wounds and life went on. A couple of friends heard about it months later. When you realize that only you count, you start seeing life differently. Hence my new start. Story 66. I act as if my second life has ended. The prospect of having a first life, an education, a good life in a good country, a good job, anything is gone. I am way past that age. If I try to learn something, I can read it 10 times and still not understand it, and by the next week I forget everything. I have no ambition or motivation to keep up a fake smile at a job. In relationships, I feel so old that I come across as the creepy guy. Story 67. A few weeks ago, I realized that I would never write the books I wanted if I spent my free time only reading and playing video games. I have written more in the last month than I did in the previous 7 years. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.